Welcome to the deep dive. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Tom. Great to be here.
Today we're diving into, well, something that affects a huge number of people, often kind of quietly, diabetes.
Yeah, the sources you shared called it a silent epidemic, which is
Yeah,
a bit chilling when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Like it's sneaking around.
exactly. And just to show how widespread this is, one thing that really jumped out was this projection. Diabetes cases potentially skyrocketing by 2045.
Wow, that's a huge increase. Really underlines why we need to get a handle on understanding it, doesn't it?
It really does. Now, the science can sound a bit, complex.
Sure.
But one article had this great analogy. Think of your body running on sugar like a car on gas.
Okay.
Diabetes is kind of like pouring sugar straight into the gas tank. It just gums things up, makes the engine run poorly.
I like that. Yeah, it really simplifies it, gets the idea across.
Right. So for this deep dive, we're aiming to get the full picture from the materials you gave us. Everything from, maybe keeping that sugar out of the tank,
Prevention, yeah.
to managing things if it is there, and even potentially hitting reverse in some situations.
Absolutely. And it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. Your sources show it popping up at different life stages.
From babies right through to older adults.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll look at how it affects people across that whole lifespan.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. It is interesting how it shows up differently. The sources mention neonatal diabetes in babies.
Yeah, thankfully quite rare, often genetic. But then you move into childhood, and type 1 is often what people think of.
Right, the typical picture. But Tom, wasn't there something in the articles about type 2 showing up more in kids now?
Yes, exactly. That's a really key point from the sources. Historically, type 2 was, an adult thing mostly.
Mm.
But we're seeing more diagnoses in children and teens. It's blurring the lines.
So the old rules don't quite apply anymore?
Not as strictly, no. And then, yes, in adulthood, type 2 becomes much more prevalent.
Although adults can still get type 1.
Definitely. That overlap is increasing, which, as the sources stress, makes getting the right diagnosis super important, whatever your age.
Okay, so let's pin down the key differences. Type 1 versus type 2. One article called Type 1, the Body's Betrayal. What's behind that?
It's quite a powerful phrase, isn't it? Essentially, with type 1, your immune system gets confused. It mistakenly attacks and destroys the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas.
So your own body is fighting itself.
Precisely. The system designed to protect you turns inward, and that means insulin production just stops or drops drastically.
And that explains why it often comes on suddenly and why insulin is needed right away. The sources said type 1 needs insulin. No shortcuts.
Exactly right. The body isn't making it, so it has to be replaced. Injections, pumps. It's essential from day one. No messing around with just diet for type 1.
Got it. Okay, switching to type 2 then. The description there was the slow burn. How is that different?
Well, with type 2, the body usually is still making insulin, at least initially. The main problem is insulin resistance.
Resistant.
Yeah, the cells don't respond properly to the insulin. It's like the key is there, but the lock is sticky or jammed. Sugar can't get into the cells easily for energy.
And this is the one more linked to lifestyle factors, weight, genetics, creeps up slowly.
That's generally the case, yes.
Yeah.
It often develops over a longer period.
And the information really hammered home the lifestyle connection. One article flat out said diet is king for type 2.
It's a strong statement, but yeah, the sources definitely highlight how much impact diet and activity levels have on type 2 development and management. Huge factors.
So, okay, what are the warning signs? What should people listening be aware of for either type?
For type 1, the symptoms tend to hit you faster and harder. Things like extreme thirst, needing the loo constantly.
Like really noticeable changes.
Yes, often quite dramatic. Unexplained weight loss, blurry vision too. It's usually pretty clear something's wrong.
But for type 2, much sneakier, right? Hence the silent epidemic tag.
Exactly. The signs can be way more subtle. Maybe feeling tired all the time, a bit more hungry or thirsty than usual, but not necessarily extreme.
What else?
Cuts or sores, healing slowly, maybe getting more infections, tingling or numbness in your hands or feet. Things you might easily ignore or blame on, just getting older or being busy.
Okay, so if any of that rings a bell, what's the next step? Testing. And what about this pre-diabetes thing?
Yeah, testing is crucial. The A1C test is common, gives an average blood sugar picture over a few months.
Like a report card for your blood sugar?
Sort of, yeah. And fasting glucose tests check your sugar after you haven't eaten. Prediabetes is basically your levels are high, but not quite high enough for a full type 2 diagnosis.
The sources called it a yellow light.
Perfect analogy.
Mm.
It's a warning sign. It means you're on the road towards type 2, but importantly, there's often a chance to turn things around with lifestyle changes.
Okay, that's good to know. So, treatment. Insulin is a must for type 1, we established that. But type 2, is reversal actually possible? The sources suggested it might be.
Yes, for type 2, the sources are quite clear that significant lifestyle changes, especially diet and exercise leading to weight loss, can lead to remission, or what some call reversal.
Really?
Yeah. One article specifically mentioned that losing even 10–15% of body weight can significantly improve insulin sensitivity.
Wow.
Like cleaning those sticky locks we talked about.
Wow, okay, so it's not always a life sentence with medication for type 2.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
While it's not guaranteed for everyone, achieving good control without meds or even reaching normal blood sugar levels is possible for some through those changes. Of course, medications like metformin are also very helpful management tools for many.
That's really encouraging. Let's dig into those dietary recommendations then. Swapping drinks seemed like a big one.
Definitely. The advice was pretty blunt. Cut out the sugary sodas, opt for water or sparkling water with lime that Kata mentioned.
And fruit juice, often seen as healthy.
Yeah, but the sources warned against it, called it sugar in disguise. Even natural sugars can spike your blood sugar quite a bit when they're concentrated like that.
Right, without the fiber from the whole fruit. Okay. And balanced meals, why is consistency so important?
It's all about avoiding those big peaks and troughs in blood sugar. A good mix of carbs, protein, and healthy fats helps glucose enter the bloodstream more steadily, keeps things stable.
Less chance of going too high or too low?
Exactly. Prevents both hypo and hyperglycemia, ideally.
And cutting back on processed carbs, what's the deal there?
Those tend to digest really quickly, causing sharp blood sugar spikes. Your sources actually linked higher intake of processed carbs to increased diabetes risk in some ethnic groups who'd shifted away from traditional diets.
Ah, right. There was that phrase, return to lentils, spices, and movement.
Yeah, basically suggesting a return to more whole, unprocessed foods and an active lifestyle.
Okay, speaking of practical food, the sources gave some specific recipe ideas. Breakfast. Avocado and egg pizzas.
Sounds good, actually. Whole grain toast, mashed avocado, poached egg, chili flakes. About 300 calories, low sugar, decent protein. Checks a lot of boxes.
Ticks the boxes, yeah.
Yeah.
Lunch. Chickpea and spinach salad.
Another good one. Chickpeas mean fiber and plant protein. Spinach, olive oil, lemon, feta. Simple, healthy. Around 400 calories, loads of fiber, 12 grams.
Fiber's key, isn't it, for slowing sugar absorption?
Absolutely crucial. And dinner. Turmeric, salmon, and quinoa. Nice. Salmon gives you protein and those omega-3s. Turmeric's got anti-inflammatory properties. Serve it with quinoa and steamed veg. About 500 calories, low sugar again.
They even provided a little shopping list. Avocado, eggs, whole grain bread, chickpeas, spinach, salmon, quinoa, turmeric. Makes it easy to try.
Yeah, really practical examples. Takes the guesswork out.
Now, you mentioned ethnicity earlier. The sources highlighted a higher risk, up to 3 times higher, for people of South Asian, African American, and Hispanic descent. What's the thinking there?
It seems to be a complex mix, described as genetics meet Western diets. There might be underlying genetic predispositions making these groups more prone to insulin resistance.
Okay.
Then, when traditional diets, often lower in processed foods, are swapped for more westernized diets, high in refined carbs and sugars, that genetic risk factor gets amplified.
Like a double whammy, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Which is why that advice, return to lentils, spices, and movement, seems particularly aimed at reconnecting with potentially more protective traditional food patterns and activity levels.
Makes sense. Okay, managing the extremes. What about hypoglycemia, low blood sugar? What did the sources say to do?
Right, hypos. Symptoms can be shakiness, sweating, confusion, dizziness. Not pleasant. The advice is immediate. Get some fast-acting carbs in you.
Like what?
Juice is often recommended, even though we just said limit juice generally.
Ah, but this is different. An emergency fix.
Exactly. In the hypo situation, you need that sugar hit quickly to bring levels back up safely. So a small glass of juice or glucose tablets works well.
Okay. And the opposite, hyperglycemia, high blood sugar.
Symptoms there can be the increased thirst and urination again, fatigue, blurry vision. Management involves hydration, monitoring levels closely, and sticking to your treatment plan, insulin or meds if prescribed.
But the goal is always stable levels through balanced eating, right?
That's the ideal, definitely. Consistent balanced meals are the best prevention for both highs and lows.
There was also that story, the foot that told a story. A bit sobering, but important for highlighting complications.
Yes, really important. It illustrated how nerve damage and poor circulation, potential long-term effects of high blood sugar, can make feet incredibly vulnerable.
How so?
A small cut, a blister, something minor for most people, could become a serious infection, or a non-healing ulcer, a diabetic foot ulcer, very quickly. In the worst cases, it can lead to tissue death, necrosis, and potentially amputation.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that diabetes management is whole body care. Foot care is incredibly important. Regular checks, proper footwear.
Definitely puts things in perspective. It's not just about sugar levels day to day.
Not at all. It's about preventing those serious long-term consequences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, thinking about all the information from your sources, what's the one big takeaway for you? It's clearly more complex than just don't eat sugar.
Absolutely. I think, for me, the most powerful message from these materials is just how impactful lifestyle changes can be, particularly for type 2. The idea that significant weight loss can potentially reverse it or lead to remission, that puts a lot of agency back with the individual, you know?
That's a really hopeful and empowering note to land on. Okay, and for our listeners, if they want to dig deeper, find tools, resources aligned with this info.
Yeah, definitely check out www.beacons.a of the Gus Wellness Vault digit. Lots of good stuff there.
Great, and if you fancy supporting the show, maybe get some merchandise. You can find that at www.vonguswellnessvault.shop.fourthwall.com.
We always appreciate the support. And hey, if something we talked about today struck a chord, or maybe clarified something for you, share it.
Yeah, talk about it. The more we understand and discuss these things openly, the less silent these conditions become.
Couldn't agree more. Bring it out into the open.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.